first.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Digital Spotlight podcast. As always, your co-host Alexa Peralta. I'm happy to be here with you for another great episode. The director of the e-governance and digitalization unit, and as always, proud to be part of a great team driving this transformation change in Belize. And today we're joined back by Stephanie. Stephanie, how's it been?
Hi everyone. I'm Stephanie Ayuso Acosta, and right here, looking forward to another episode of Digital Spotlight. It's been great. It's been going great. Back to school. It's back to school time. So that part of me that's the educator, the part of me that wears the educator
It's back
hat,
on.
It's back on in full swing.
And that, I'm sure that must be exciting, coming out from the pandemic and coming back to school. How has that been for you, that transition process as an educator?
Oh, wow. Well, currently I'm transitioning as well. So there are some big changes that I'm doing in the education field that I'm in. But when it comes to the changes that we had to go through with the pandemic, my gosh, where do I begin? Where do I
Right.
begin? Because we were all thrust into this situation right here, and we had to make do with what we have
Right.
and make the most of it.
It was overnight, if you think about it, right? This whole new way of how we do education in Belize.
I will never forget that day in March. I remember we were told, pack up our things, we're going home for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We were told we'd be back after 2 weeks. I told my students, you know what? The way I am, I'm pulling that whole group out. Let's take a class picture because I'm not sure if we're going to be here until the start of the next academic year. No, it was more like 2 years. It was more like 2 years, right?
And I'm sure that process has been, with its ups and downs, as it is with any change that comes around, and navigating that change with different people, and how do you help different people to navigate that change?
Indeed, Alexia. So that part of it, the dealing with the change, it was challenging. It was quite challenging, but I must say that the institution in which I worked, very innovative, very proactive, and they fully embraced the online method of teaching. We started off with that fully online method, and yes, there was some resistance, and coupled with that, there were limitations in resources because of the whole suddenness of the whole situation, but we had to make do with what
You had to adopt.
Right. We had to adapt.
You embraced it. You embraced a different culture, and I think that's what we're discussing today. How do we embrace, and also the importance of culture and leadership in helping us to navigate this new transition, whether it be in the education sector, or whether it be in any of our fields, really and truly. And in this case, of course, how do we navigate the change from being a analog, which just means paper-based country, into one that's really digital now, and the importance of that at all levels. How do we get everybody to be part of the conversation when we talk about culture and change and leadership? So, I immediately, as you were speaking, what grabbed my attention was what you said. We had to embrace something that was new, it was different. We saw resistance.
Yes,
But
we
how
did.
did you navigate that resistance? I'm curious to know, how did you help everyone in this process?
Wow. Well, embracing the change is something that we had to do, but it didn't come easily. And what we noticed was that some students adapted very well to the change, while others they had difficulty adapting to it. So it was, sometimes they say, yes, you need to treat everyone equally, and this whole concept of equality. Well, when it comes to teaching, we're not so much about equality and more into equity, because some students, they did so well with the change, while others they needed more scaffolding, they needed more assistance, they needed more one-on-one. I had to do some video calls with particular students and show
Oh, wow.
them. I had to ask them, please screen share and show me what you're doing so that I could guide them through the process. And basically it was how to make them feel comfortable
Comfortable.
with the change. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's important. We discussed this in our other episode with Erwin about inclusion and the assumption that children, young adults are digital natives, and that this is something that it's normal to them, and that it should be an easy transition. But I think what you said clearly highlights that that's not the reality. That in fact, there are still kids today and young adults that might not feel comfortable or still need that support system to transition and to begin to adapt to a new digital reality. And I think that was so important. And I think even in all of this transition in the education sector, we even saw a lot of topics about inclusion and access to devices. Besides, all the challenges that exist in having that strong support system for kids.
That is, you hit it right on the head with that one, because not all the young people who come to the institutions are digital natives, and it basically goes down to their background. It goes back to their background and their accessibility to all these things, what they have been exposed to, and that comes from the way they're brought up, the way they're being raised, and their home environment. So we see that they come with totally different backgrounds and different levels of comfort in trying these new things. Some of them are totally comfortable with it. Others are like, I'm not so sure about it, but I'll give it a go. And then there are those who are totally unwilling to even
Yes.
try it. So those are the ones we have to try to get everybody at the same level so that this change that we're trying to bring is something that will bring betterment.
And it takes me back to something I heard on a video about the change process and the fact that you're always going to have early adopters, but they're always going to be the smallest percentage or population, because simply they're open to it. Their attitudes, their behaviors, their mindset, they're open to trying something new. So they'll always be early adopters. And there'll always be some of us who will have challenges to transition. And that is, if you think about it, the bigger population. And there's so many factors as to why they might have that challenge. It could be that they don't feel safe, they don't have confidence, or like you said, they maybe haven't been exposed. Because we've spoken a lot about kids, but
Yes.
very curious about how it was to transition parents.
We communicate to parents through blast text, through
Using different
yes,
methods.
exactly, social
Oh, wow.
media. And in some instances, parents were called one-on-one, but that's what needed to happen in order to get the parents' confidence in this change that we're doing. But this is in the education field,
Yes.
right? This is in the education field and the whole how we had to cope with jumping into online school. But what has this whole change process been like in government?
I must say it's been pretty much the same, because what we're trying to do is change beliefs and culture to be more digital. It's actually a similar experience that we faced, just like how the education system had to go online. The government system also had to go online. Everybody had to go on the national lockdowns. Everybody had to find a way to still do their jobs online, like you mentioned. Being able to do conference meetings, to still be connected, still offer the services that citizens want. That we're very much used to walking to somebody, seeing their face, asking what we want to ask instead of using other methods to do so. Likewise, it was a transformation, it was a change. But I like what you said, that communication was key. Without that leadership, like you highlighted, it's very difficult to navigate that new change. And more so as we try to become more digital, that leadership, that culture is going to be key for us to change. And that's why, the national digital agenda was so important for us to really get done when the institution was established, because now we have a clear vision. We have a vision of not just what the unit is trying to do, but how will this vision impact education? How are we going to go with teleeducation? How do we improve and build upon what we did during the pandemic? How do we now drive ICT in the health sector? How do we support business innovation? How do we support inclusion? So the agenda really tries to now ensure that there's that leadership, one vision, and that the vision is collective. Exactly. So all of that is very key and important. So it's important for us to even know what is the vision that we're working towards. So Stephanie, I invite you and our audiences at home to stay tuned as we take a short break and we actually feature the National Digital Agenda video so that you can learn a little bit more about the vision that we're working towards together as we aim to transform Belize and ensure that it impacts you. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy the video. Hi everyone, I'm Alexa Peralta, the Director of the E-Governance and Digitalization Unit, and I'm here to tell you about Belize's first National Digital Agenda 2022-2025, Towards a Digital Belize. The National Digital Agenda represents our collective vision to transform our country into a digital nation. It is an integrated transformation and modernization plan for the next 4 years to address key areas from digital infrastructure and connectivity to inclusion, open government, innovation, and cybersecurity. It is our unified vision to build trust in government services by providing reliable, inclusive, safe, and efficient digital solutions for citizens, businesses, and employees. This plan of action will enable the government to enter a period of rapid and disruptive transformation to improve service delivery, strengthen governance, and create public value. The digital agenda aims to achieve 3 high-level strategic goals. 1. Transforming the way government operates. 2. Developing a digital culture and society. And 3. Building the foundation for future digital transformation. How will we achieve this? The digital agenda is built on 3 main pillars. 1. ICT and technology enablers. 2. Digital government. And 3. Digitalization for recovery. These pillars have a set of programs for the next 4 years, which will contribute to achieve the 3 high-level strategic goals. Under the ICT and Technology Enablers pillar, we will focus on expanding connectivity in Belize, improving digital infrastructure, implementing an e-services portal, strengthening national data centers, and driving digital inclusion. Under the digital government pillar, we will focus on improving the regulatory environment, simplifying services, implementing a national identity, digitalizing the civil registry, developing open government platforms, implementing the cybersecurity strategy, and building capacity. Under the digitalization for recovery pillar, we will focus on improving digital literacy for all, implementing the national innovation strategy, supporting business innovation, achieving teleeducation and digital health, and supporting the transformation of the tourism and agriculture sector. The National Digital Agenda is an actionable plan to bring forth a more citizen-centric government and create public value. It is dependent on a strong partnership and collaboration amongst government, citizens, development partners, and industry, all working together to deliver the plan's vision. Together, we will achieve the country's transformation.
And we're back. We're hoping you enjoyed that video on the National Digital Agenda. And as we can see, Alexia, that is a very ambitious
To say the
plan,
least, right?
To say the least. But you know what? Something very proactive, filled with innovation, and it's something that we can all look forward to, right? But I can see that a lot of migration needs to happen from where we're currently at to where we're going to go
Exactly.
following that digital agenda.
Right, and that's what our transformation journey is about, is how are we going to move to that new vision we have of being that digital government, that digital country, where digital is part of our DNA. It's part of what we do every day. It's part of how we deliver government services. It's part of how we communicate. It's part of how we interact with each other. We collaborate. So there's so much elements to it. So the plan is very ambitious. As you can see, it's so multidimensional. It speaks about so many different aspects. It makes you kind of think, how are we going to achieve this? How are we going to do all that's in that very ambitious, but I must say still realistic. If, of course, we partner and we begin that culture shift.
Hearing that from you, Director Peralta, very realistic, right? Hearing that from you,
I feel the pressure. It's getting hot in here. You're getting hot.
Quite comforting, and it makes me feel at ease because I feel like leadership when we're undertaking any change is very significant, very important, and from what I can see, from what I have observed, and from what I know has been taking place in this national digital agenda, I must applaud the leadership behind what is taking place. Have you noticed like different levels of, organizational readiness?
Most certainly, and that was actually, it's interesting that you asked that question because that was part of a digital transformation course that we launched in government, and part of the aspect that was learned in that course is how do we gauge organizational readiness? How do we gauge our digital readiness? And the first thing you see there is, where are we when it comes to leadership? Where are we when it comes to culture? Are we first taking the approach of digital first? Or are we still thinking traditional and thinking, let's do something by paper? So as simple as that, you realize that if the leadership isn't in place, if the leadership isn't ready, then it's going to be very difficult to create those little pockets of change that others can drive in the institution. So the readiness is important, but sometimes you realize that the readiness is impacted by awareness. If they don't know, then how can they feel empowered? So it goes back to knowledge, education, and that drives empowerment.
That's the thing. How do you make them feel that they possess the knowledge? How do you make them feel that level of comfort to be able to do these things?
Yeah, that's by, giving them the tools, but also ensuring, as just like you guys did in the education sector, how do you drive that message in different ways in how they understand that message? Because everybody is comfortable differently, So that was important. And it takes me back to what I mentioned earlier about the digital transformation course, and that being a new tool that we're now offering to public officers. You managed to join us in the panel presentation, and I think you saw all of the great work that came out of that course, some of the thought processes, the examples, the change that they want to see in ministries. And that came all from them. And it came from just a 4-week course that we offered, where we gave them a lot of knowledge. We gave them the tools. We gave them the space to collaborate, to think, to talk. If you ask me, the most valuable thing I can say from that course was the fact that people who might have never known each other in government had a mechanism to speak to each other and realize that they all have the same ideas. and they all want to see that common change and vision. And once you start to have that conversation, I'm sure from your experience, you would see it starts to create
Yes.
that ripple effect, right?
Yes, and from being there, I was quite impressed. I was quite impressed because I was able to appreciate the magnitude of the benefits of that course. And as you mentioned, it's a 4-week course, but I really do feel like it was far-reaching. I was able to see that the participants, they were comfortable with each other, and there was a freshness in the sense of honesty, the opinions they were bringing up on what needs to change and how they will embrace this new digital transformation. It was very real, and it seemed to me like they are hungry for this positive change in their respective departments.
And I think you could have seen too that it was so citizen focused. Like one of the presentations even, took the extra mile of going and reviewing what has been some of the customer feedback from the services that were offered by this ministry. And and they made the statement, that's not good enough. We need to do better, and how we're going to do better is by going through this digital transformation process, understanding the leadership, the skills that are needed, the infrastructure, and how do we provide that roadmap to help these institutions transform themselves. And that's key to us. That was like, wow, we're seeing the change in the mindset in public officers. And we were extremely surprised by the level of uptake. We designed it only to be for 3 cohorts. And now we're expanding to a 4th cohort because there's such a high demand for it and interest.
That's so amazing. That's so amazing because I saw the benefits of it. I can see that these are the ones who might be the first ones who are willing to embrace this whole change.
The early adopters,
Correct.
right?
That's the term I was looking for, the early adopters. But I can see also that they might be the ones who will go back and bring this sense of leadership into their office spaces with their colleagues and kind of raise the comfort level of everyone else as they're moving and adapting towards the changes.
Right. They're becoming the change makers. They're becoming that wave of change that we need if we want to achieve this vision. And that's why, I like to dub them digital ambassadors, because that's what they're doing. They're now championing this in their organizations to create that larger change that as a country we want. And I think that's so valuable. And it's so important to even add and to understand their perception of what the course has been for them. So I invite you, Stephanie, and those at home to stay tuned for the next featured video as we learn from the public officers what's been their experience in this transformation process, and what has been the benefits for them and how it's actually going to help them to create that impact for you at home. So stay tuned as you learn a little bit more about the digital transformation course and how overall, as always, it's going to impact you and help you in this transformation process.
Do you want to be a part of the digital transformation of Believe? As our society evolves digitally, so too does the need to evolve the way we operate. The e-Governance and Digitalization Unit, in partnership with the UNDP and the Ministry of Public Service, are leading the way forward. Introducing the Digital Transformation in Belize course.
Digital skills are critical in this era, where technology continues to fundamentally change the way we live and work. Hence, our primary objective is to equip our citizenry, inclusive of our public servants, with the necessary skills to navigate this technological wave and maximize its capacity for the benefit and transformation of this nation.
The use of ICTs allow our citizens to have access to information within 3 clicks. It will allow our people to access government services without spending hours in front of some infamous government departments. It will allow government departments to share critical information, allowing redundancies and inefficiencies to dissipate and truly will even tackle corruption.
We must enable our public service with increased public value and broad public sector modernization, greater openness, transparency, engagement with, trust, and security. Through the integration of digital technologies and user preferences in service design and delivery of direct personal services and in shaping public policy outcomes while also achieving efficiency and productivity gains.
Our partnership with e-Governance and Digitization Unit is geared towards the implementation of the National Digital Agenda through financial and technical support to policy reform, legislative modernization, knowledge sharing, capacity building, and digital inclusion initiatives aimed to close the digital divide and catapult Belize in this new era.
It is safe to say that we have yet to fully take the advantage of technology. However, the need to adhere to social distancing measures and lockdown protocols forced us to realize we needed to do better. The question then became, how can we survive in this new reality? The answer to our survival is digital transformation. How do we go from analog to digital? How do we prepare to design new business models? And how do we have the knowledge to take this necessary step in helping us to transform? It will require change at all levels and the participation of everyone to achieve this transition. But to achieve it, we must want it. We must be willing to take the first step to this transformation process. So thank you for staying tuned with us. I hope you enjoyed that feature video, learning a little bit more about our public officers, what they're doing to create that impact for you. Stephanie, we've had, I would say, an engageful conversation, but also I think we've said a lot about the importance of culture, leadership. What do you think it overall, what does it mean for Belize to go through this transition process?
Well, overall, what I can see is that, one, we have good leadership behind this digital transformation. We do, and we must acknowledge it. I must acknowledge it because we're heading in the right direction. And I feel it's very important, the significance that how this is going to transform the lives of not only the different government departments in the way they conduct business to facilitate it, just make their work environment better. But also, I think that it's really going to be impactful for the general Belizean population, and it's going to make life a little bit easier.
Right.
It's going to make life a little bit easier, a little bit more convenient, and it's something that, yes, it's change that needs to be embraced, but the end product of it is something that I can already see is something for us to look forward to.
Right, and what you said was, it's totally important, the leadership, embracing that culture. And, all of us at home, we need to be willing to embrace that culture because, the change is coming. There's no way we can avoid it. That change wave is coming. So, we kind of have to be part of the conversation to help us to also create the digital culture we want, and to really provide that supporting mechanism for us to achieve our vision. So, Stephanie, I would like to thank you for joining me today. I think it's been such a great conversation. Understanding the perspective as an educator and in embracing this change that we have to go, and kind of giving our viewers a little view of what's coming, and that it's something that's great and it's going to impact them. So, thank you for for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
And we're gonna continue having very interesting, engageful conversations. And as always, we want to make sure that you keep engaged with us. So follow us on the e-governance and digitalization unit page to learn more, share more, and engage with us more as we continue our Digital Spotlight podcast. Stay tuned.
It is a wonder I get through at all. Doing government business, big or small. The lines are long, I'm waiting there. The process is a nightmare. So the government is making changes. So it's easier with online forms going paperless to handle your requests. And this is gonna change the way it is. A modern way to change the way we live. Upgrading all the systems we have to make your life better. Better cyber security and even better connectivity. The promotion of the transformation to the future for me. Making a digital believes in the always changing industry technologies. But we see progress in all the communities. We need the digital spotlight.